Weird science
is the revolution.
The Amazing Spider-Man number 51, you mentioned, pretty cool cover.
Oh, yeah.
I do like that. It is written by Zeb Wells, and you have pencils by Todd Naok and Ed McGuinness. Ed McGuinness on the cover that we like. You also have Mark Farmer, Todd Naok, Cliff Rathburn, and Wade Von Graubadger inkers. We have Marcelo Menez, Eric Arciniega, and Brian Valencia on colors, but only one letter, thank God. VC's Joe Caramagna. And you change art deals and you have a lot of things. It looked pretty good. I mean, the whole thing kind of was somewhat consistent. The problem I have is it's like balls to the wall, everything getting thrown at you.
Yeah, the art's not the issue in this at all.
No, but by the end, I don't know about you or anybody else listening, it felt like like 2 pages. Like by the end, I'm like, well, what happened? Like everything, just big pages and boom, and a lot of fights. So it was cool. So I'm not going to be that down on it. But kind of the whole story, though, wasn't much of a story. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to find Henry Winkler. And if I hear this Winkler device anytime more, I hope that we just get past that because it drives me insane. And it's thrown in there almost just to, I think, mess with everybody because it seems like I don't understand what happened. And you even have at the beginning Ben Reilly's there with Hollow's Eve saying, the dream Eve. And it's weird for him to call her Eve, too, just as an aside. Not call her Janine, but say the same one I've had since I used the Winkler device. I'm like, this Winkler device just came out of nowhere and just started being told by everyone, you're not going to fool me. I didn't see it. And so all this was where all of this time through dark web, all that. Oh, my God, Ben, he wants to get his memories back. The Beyond Corporation stole them. Oh, my God. And then you end up where Hollow's Eve comes over and says, I'm worried. It clearly did something to you, the Winkler device. And you end up having Ben Reilly, I don't really want to call him Chasm just yet, but says, it did something, but not to me. And in that, you're like, even if what I said was what you say, because but I know he means Peter, and then I'm still saying what you say.
Because the memories. Yeah, I mean, also, what's he doing, like wearing his full costume in the bed, like sleeping?
Yeah, it's just maybe there was costume night. It really would play out with Hollow's Eve. Like suddenly she's like, why did you keep wanting me to put that Jason mask on? And he's like, don't ask.
Yeah, don't ask questions.
Baby. Also, it'd be funny if she ended up having a Chasm mask. So then, two chasms there. But you end up even at the beginning with the, spring me the spear. In that, you do see Spider-Man in the Winkler device at the first page. It drives me nuts. And Chasm, everything's going. The spear, all that. And what the explanation is by the end, if you have been reading, the explanation is so ridiculous that when Craven's deal where the sins of Norman from the Queen Goblin she tried to put them into or get them back in Norman. Peter jumped in front and took the sins. At some point, he went to the Winkler device, ended up kind of uploading that into it so that when you say a secret word, it comes out, but yet now can't be drawn out by the spear of Craven. Makes no damn sense to me.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't make any sense. And in that, you're explaining something that I thought we were done with, and you're explaining something in a way that you are just making stuff up to try to make it work, and it doesn't work for me. But when you just have fights and things like that, it's okay. We've had worse in this run, but it's, again, we talked about it a lot. It's the foundation of sand again. Mm-hmm. The idea that you're trying to make up a story that you want to try to make believe that it's a smart thing you started before, but you're just finagling things. It's not going to work. But even then, you have these weird things where the Sinister Six, this kind of version, Sans, the Goblin, says they want the living brain. They're mad at the living brain. Oh, my God, the living brain ended up being bit. We're going to get revenge. Craven then's just like, well, I kind of think that we should worry about the sins of the Green Goblin. I think they've been freed and we have to do that. And they shrug that off. The Shocker's like, well, we don't need that. Like our Electro's like, we don't need that. We don't need that stuff. And then Doc Ock's like, yeah, I agree. Revenge is what we need. Then you get a call from Norman. Norman calls, and now we're back and forth of, I'm coming to get you. No, you're not. Yes, I am. I'll see you later. No, you won't. You're going to die. No, I won't. Just to have it where Norman's like, I've sent my buddy. We all know it's Spider-Man. We all know it's the Goblin Spider-Man. That's what it is. There's no real shock when it comes. Ends up showing up. Pretty cool panel. Like the art, right. You said, the art is not the problem here.
Mm-mm.
So you can actually have a lot of fun with this issue. If you don't think about the bullshit, right?
But it's Ed McGuinness, I think, inserting himself to be over the top like he did with Rec Rap and all that stuff, too. It's a little bit of that going on.
But even then, like, what are you going to do with Peter as the Goblin here? And
just give me the regular Green Goblin.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It plays off, like people would say, it plays off as just the Green Goblin,
it's just him with
Peter.
the spider suit on.
Or if you're like there, it's like a mix of little Joker in there, but always was. But yeah, you don't. To me, I don't get a flavor of, oh my God, that's a different. It's just the Goblin there as Peter Spider-Man because of his personal deals with everyone, but he's being over the top. You know, he's going after Ox. Says, "Hey, I did a little." Deal with your arms. He goes after Electro. He goes after all these things, going to take them down. In the meantime, everything, again, this is why at points maybe Zeb Wells could do a good job, but sometimes I don't know. This feels like he wants to be too funny in this issue, where I think it would have been better played to be kind of, darker and go with this idea. Oh my God.
The darker
Peter
seems to always be a little better with him.
Yeah. And the idea where Peter's the Goblin, like, oh my God, like if he does anything, we all know he's not going to be the Goblin forever, but if he does it, is he going to regret it? Oh my God. But it comes off as a joke, especially when we go to Norman in this next scene. We go to Oscorp and they're trying to pick up the pieces of the living brain, busting out, becoming the walking brain.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, and you have, hey, sir, like, should we end up putting this for the insurance? We better mention the living brain. No, we're not going to do that. But if they find out, then our insurance rates. And I'm like, okay, like what? And so with that, then the phone rings. And Norman answers and like, hey, what up? And you have this, hey, what's going on, Mr. O? They're like, what's Mr. O? Like, who's this? And it's Kamala Khan. And she's calling like she's there, like calling her best bud from high school here to have a chat with Norman Osborn. The idea that she even has a cell phone is ridiculous.
That's crazy. His direct line that's in his hand.
Even though she worked there, but she got killed. She was just an intern, and that was ridiculous. So we're back to this. And she's like, hey, you know what? But by the end of it, it's played as Kamala all this time is playing the Terminator 2 kind of play, where when you ended up having Arnold call up the home of John Connor, it says, hey, the dog's barking. Hey, how's Fluffy? Oh, Fluffy's fine. Well, the dog wasn't named Fluffy, like your parents are dead. But why is Kamala calling him in the first place? She is just Kamala. She's just hanging. She says she's trying to get a hold of Peter, but there's no he skipped the part where she would need to figure out why she would call. And then at the end, she just says, oh, it wasn't Norman. But there's a lot of plays in this issue that should have had better explanation, because there's some people would be reading this thinking, what do you mean by that? But it's just that he's the Goblin.
Even the fact that Kamala even wants to talk to Peter is weird.
Yeah.
What does she have to do?
And again, Zeb Wells is trying to make it seem by the end that she is doing this because she has a sneaking suspicion that Norman isn't himself. But why? Where would she get this? She's just hanging out in the dorm room.
To me, she doesn't even know Peter. She was an intern with him with quotation marks around it. She doesn't know Norman. She died, and we're done with that.
Again,
why is this coming back?
Remember, when she first showed up in the book and then was pretty much left aside until she died, what she said was Norman, because he had to relocate to New Jersey, and, somebody, I guess, cares about New Jersey, was Kamala. She went to go and check it out. But that's not now, and that's not that she's a mutant X-Men. Oh, but now she's on the phone. I want to make sure Norman isn't basically saying, I want to make sure Norman isn't the Goblin. Why? Why would she do this? But she says, and it's just to get her in the book, but it's so forced. And then we go back to Peter Goblin going around, and everything is, hey, I'm not just the Spider-Man now. I am more vicious. I'm going to do this. But even so, you don't get much from it. He ends up, shackling up Vulture. Then he says where he puts this kind of patch on. Electro says, oh, what are you going to do? Dampen her? He's like, no, I'm going to extra do you. You're going to superpower.
I'm going to overload you.
Well, you have Sam in there, and he ends up where he gets turns to glass.
Horrifically.
Yeah, horrifically. It's okay. I mean, that's kind of neat. And
like he's never been turned to glass before. It's not like it's just new. He's probably been done that 50 times.
Doesn't that feel like the idea that Zeb Wells thinks that's so clever? And then all of a sudden, the Avengers are there, and you get that Todd now change. It looks good, but it's definitely the wrong team. And what we find out then, it's Mysterio, and he's trying to, fool him. And it's Wolverine, Cap, Miss Marvel, Spider-Woman.
That's
and
the
Doctor
Avengers
Strange.
I like.
Yeah, and it's that team. But again, Mysterio, like, it's almost like he goes through his Rolodex. He's so old school, and he's got the old team going. It doesn't fool people.
Well, he's a little sus, though, because he's picking the Miss Marvel uniform and the sus Spider-Woman uniform, too.
Yeah. So you have that, and I'm so gun-shy, and it's not gun-shy. I'm so in tune of, like, getting mad at Zeb Wells that I'm like, oh, man, he does all the things that kind of show you, and I'm like, Doctor Strange is dead. What's going on? And then you find out. But even then, when he says to Mysterio and gets him, it's like, it's too quick. And I don't know if this will make sense to everybody. But when Kamala gets off the phone with Norman and just says, it's not him. And then you switch the scene. It's too quick.
It doesn't sink in.
Yeah. And so when he's fighting the Avengers, and then he ends up like, oh, hey there, I think this is a dated lineup. And it looks like he starts attacking Mysterio, but doesn't really connect. I'm expecting at one point, before I realize that I'm a dummy, that I'm waiting for the Avengers that just on the side, it's Mysterio, and then you move on. Like, everything is so...
bashing his head in with that rebar or whatever.
He's just going to town on him.
You're going to kill me.
Yeah, and then Craven comes in and says, you're sick. I know you're not, doing this. This is the sins of Osborn. I'm going to set you free like I did before. I'm going to touch you with my spear. Could be canceled. He ends up going on, and again, like, you don't really spell it out as much.
Craven's like the hero in this issue.
Yeah, he really wants to save Spider-Man. and then Spider-Goblin says, oh, really? If you believe that, I have some bad news about Santa Claus. And I don't think, again, if people are jumping in, because I think that 50th issue and the idea, oh my God, look at these pictures I'm seeing, the Spider-Goblin. Maybe you should explain it a little more, because all it looks like in that is that Craven comes over and just touches his chest, and it doesn't work. But in my mind, like, I'm just going to say Winkler machine to make it make sense. And that doesn't make sense to me, because it still should be the sins in there that were there before, but they're trying to say Yupla. Just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I know.
And then he just goes to town on him.
Well, he does that move that you like too, where he claps the ears with his hands.
Yeah, which is nonsense.
And then he starts to crunch his face. I was actually hoping he would pop his eyeballs out.
That'd be funny. Like, the worst move ever, the wrestling. First off, any wrestling move
double fist,
that
right?
you have like a slap and then you call it the big slap, it's still a slap. But when you end up where you make your hands together like a big giant ball, that does not, like, there's no way that hits harder.
There's no way the clapping works either, too, because unless you're really good at like the lateral whatever curls or whatever.
I mean, if it was somebody that had some crazy ear contraption,
like
hit
a
him, maybe
cauliflower ear.
Yeah, or I have a bit of that. I will tell you from wrestling, but no, I'm saying like they have like enhanced hearing, and you hit it so it'll be louder. Maybe give them a headache, but just doing that, and now you got me all sensitive.
No.
I only have it a little though. It's just
that's
a little.
Fine. Just a little is good. It adds character.
Yeah, really, like all the scars too. But you end up where all this going on, and then all of a sudden something comes in and starts grabbing and pulling and throwing around Spider-Goblin. And again, if you're paying attention, you know that it's Ben Reilly. So at the end, it's like, hey, Chasm, I'm here to help. Probably, I haven't made up my mind. So what you really get in this is a beginning with an ambiguous Chasm, Ben Reilly saying, I think that it wasn't me that got affected by the Winkler machine that we never saw. Then you end up just having fights that kind of are okay and fun, but they really don't mean anything. To then have Ben Reilly, Chasm come in and say another ambiguous thing, and that's where we're going forward with it. But again, it's not the worst issue he's done. Then we have an epilogue, and again, there's times where he gets a chuckle out of me, but I think he thinks that he's like the be-all, end-all of comedy. But I do like at the one point, anytime that somebody starts laying down things like Kurt says, oh man, all we got is this lame-o tech guy, and he's like, hey, I'm right here.
that was pretty funny.
I love those sort of jokes or whatever. But the idea where I didn't get even last issue that the living brain was like full out, like I gotta save Spider-Man, and I know this. I thought he was just spouting off nonsense, and now he's the walking brain.
He's getting his steps in.
Yeah, well, he is.
10,000 a day.
I mean, that's the thing. Anybody, like, if you end up having somebody who changes their lifestyle of any sort, suddenly that's all they're about. You know what I mean? This guy, like, I imagine that he's never taking a cab. People are like, come on, let's fly there. He's like, screw that. I got food. I'm walking here, and goes up. But they end up where the big play here is, where are we going? And you end up having the walking brain say, to save Spider-Man. It's not that complicated. Then can't open a door. Again, this is the jokes here. The door is broken. Right through it. No. It's not broken. It's locked. I thought you were smart. Well, I'm trying to go. And they end up saying, how are we going to bring down the Green Goblin with a team with this subpar lab tech? And then the thing, he's like, hey, I'm right here. The big play, though, is Kurt not saying, because he says, and an over-the-hill scientist with one arm. The idea is saying that we don't have enough people, and we need some more smarts. He's not legitimately saying we need more arms. But that's what the living brain or the walking brain is like. We're going to go. We'll get more arms, and you get what could be maybe the sexiest scene ever. But there's not one. There will be some, but guaranteed. Most people, me and you included, when they turned this page, they thought that J. Jonah Jameson was taking a crap. He looks like he's on the toilet when you have the living brain bust through the door and you end up where he's there. But what he is doing is actually dressing up like he's Hugh Hefner being served drinks by the old arms that Doc Ock that he has
for some reason.
That legitimately he's already overstepped his bounds with. I'm telling you, there's going to be a wedding coming up. Him and these arms are going to be married at some point. I don't know. I see some of those arms. I don't know what some of those are doing.
Well, he likes those spider slayers, so maybe he's into this now.
And I'm telling you, I'm looking at those arms and hands especially. Yeah. And I don't know what he's thinking. Like, there might be problems. It's like a girl with braces, if you know what I mean. That is the most inappropriate thing I've said on the podcast. But you end up where now we have plenty of arms. I want Kurt to go, I didn't mean it like that. Like, just because we have a bunch of arms, he's serving up drinks.
The robot's canceled.
Yeah, they're all canceled. And I swear to God, J. Jonah is on the toilet and he's marking off. What's weird is he's marking off the paper, but it does look like the pen he has is a black pen, but he's got red mark. I don't even know what's going on.
And it looks like the tip of that pen's not big enough to make those marks.
Yeah. And again, he's like playing editor where he's like, this story stinks, and this story should have been here, and here's that. It's crazy.
Somehow he got a printed newspaper. That's kind of hard these days. But
it's pretty good. And they're still going Menace, so he's like, I guess.
But he's anti-Menace, though. He likes Spider-Man
now he is. But, it's all his fault. I like the threats and menaces. I wish that he had a podcast with the arms, and the arms just don't talk. So he just says, "Hey, what do you think?"
Do a YouTube video.
They don't say it. It'd be pretty cool. But yeah, and so they have plenty of arms. The end. It's so crazy. Again, you get some cool art. You end up having, I guess, some cool. The fights just seem too quick, and then you move on because of the amount of things that they're fighting, and it's just Peter without much of a personality of his own, just cackling things. It's not even that clever. But what would you give this?
Try to be a little more positive. This is another 7 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be 6.5. I'm a little under you. The art could pick it up a bit, but by the end, I don't know. It just ended up it felt like a generic, almost like a digital. It didn't feel like this should be the big book of comics, like this and Batman. The deal.
Weird science
is the revolution.